So, welcome. My name is Sajit Nair. I've been part of the development sector for the past 16 years. And over the past 8 years, I've been involved with ISDM in the academic capacity. I teach program management, a bit of systems thinking, and so on and so forth, like that. I've also raised funds and have an association. I've written proposals and so on and so forth with a certain international base and so on. And this what you're going to
Yeah.
witness in this coming episode or this particular session would be some of the tips and tricks, some of the basic things that we can look at fundraising and the philosophy behind it without this becoming a very monotonous kind of a lecture or something like that. So without much ado, I think I'll just start on some of the things. So basically, the idea is when you look at fundraising, we need to consider the fact that uh, there's a misconception associated with fundraising that it's about money. It definitely is not about money. It's about ultimately about enrolling someone into the vision of an organization or a vision of a certain individual. So what we are trying to look into is how do we ensure and how do we try what are the mechanisms that we need to adopt so as to get someone, get some institution, some person, some community enrolled into this vision that you would want to do. So that's what we're going to look at. And I'm going to look at some sample proposals. I'm going to look at some of the mechanisms in which one needs to look at these things. Or how do you look at an executive summary, a concept note, so on and so forth. I'm also going to show you, and I'm also going to request the webinar admin, Simranji, to pause the recording at a certain point of time when I'm going to show you some, things, and we can have an open session at that. So first of all, before we start, I think it's important that we address uh, um, the the thing of what we are actually trying to fund for, and that's where we come to this thing. So I'm going to run a few slides that are just going to be a contemplative in nature. These focus on each of the SDGs that all of us are linked in. I mean, some might say they are into education, some well-being, and so on and so forth, the gender. But ultimately, a fundraiser needs to understand that all of these things are connected, and the ethos of the entire thing runs in understanding and appreciating what goes into getting funds for these or enrolling different people into this this movement that we are part of. So I'm just going to quickly run through a certain graphic indication of all the SDGs so that we know this is ultimately the commonality that binds us. I mean, you might be in healthcare, education, jo bhi hai aapka, but we are connected by these 17 SDGs that are enveloped around us. My gratitude to the ISDM team for building up the graphics for this particular SDG. I think they have been pretty succinct in the way that they are indicating it. All right. So now, without much ado, let's look at what's the most important trait for a fundraiser. I mean, if I wish this was a more interactive kind of an audience, but since it's a webinar, it's more of a one-way thing. I would assume some of your answers would be either, patience, resilience, communication, अच्छा अंग्रेजी झाड़ने आना चाहिए, and so on and so forth like that. But to be honest, I think one of the most important traits of a fundraiser is how to handle disappointments. And I mean, yeah, as you can see, there's no sarcasm involved. The ability of a fundraiser to be able to look at a certain disappointment in terms, or a rejection or something, and see what they can do out of that. Just because a funder says no does not mean that door is closed or something like that. What else can you do? How do you go ahead with that? That's a very, very crucial thing that connects to a fundraiser. My folks, I must apologize for the fact that I may go a bit fast, and I would appreciate it if you could put it in the chat group. Beach beach mein I use Hindi. So those who are not familiar with this, let me know, and I'll try my best to at least accommodate wherever possible like that. So yeah, so now we talk about handling disappointments. That's a fantastic example of how a fundraiser would handle disappointments. So, all right. So, this is an example of how do you handle disappointments. So, from around 120 odd different participants, they had suggested that they wanted this, that, that, and also we listed different aspects that are expected from this session, right from understanding the donor trends and relationship building and so on and so forth, to mastering fundraising strategies, exploring platforms, grants, hands-on experience in CSR, donor outreach, proposal writing, research techniques, donor data management, communication skills, using AI, discovering digital fundraising, and so on and so forth like that. Okay, and the important thing is, by ये session में कितना time बाकी है हमारा? I mean, considering everything, I think we are close to just around 4,860 seconds, so which approximately comes around 80 plus kind of thing minutes. So the question here is that what I'm going to do is I definitely can't cover all of these aspects, but within each of these aspects, we look at some of the critical elements. And should you want a later, detailed revert on many of these things, we can work. So just to give an example, in this session, I would actually talk about the proposal writing things. I would talk about AI, and I would actually, even provide you with a certain AI access which you can explore and so on and so forth. We'd look at some of the fundraising strategies and how do you actually write different, how's the communication skills that you would need so as to pitch successfully like that. So that's basically how we are looking at the expectation that you have set, and we'll try our best in making sure that we match them. So the first thing, I mean, I would just like you folks to look at this particular picture. And I mean, if you look at it closely, you can see that, yeah, TK, you see probably some person here pointing to some board. There's a staircase. There is a table here, definitely. One man and a woman here. I think this should be a couple of people sitting here and so on and so forth. Now, this is basically how the world views the sector and so on and so forth like that. I mean, it's not that the people are unconcerned or something like that. They just see, all right, यहाँ पे थोड़ा problem है, ये problem है and all that, but they would not be able to understand the deeper interconnections of these things, the deeper insights that or the challenges that are facing. And that's where a fundraiser's role is to make it much more clearer, because see, at the end of the day, the most important thing for a fundraiser is the fact that you are probably the only aspect of your organization that is going out of your organization to enroll someone into the idea of what your organization is doing. तो आपके एग्री आपके प्रोग्राम मैनेजर्स है जो who run the program. There are impact handlers, there are monitoring and evaluation, there are all of those kind of people are there. But you are one of the few people who actually go out and convince people and enroll everyone. So you are also the person who's supposed to make the functionality of your organization, the vision and everything clear to the outside world. And we are going to discuss on how do we actually do that in some in the coming forthcoming slides like that. So yeah, all right. So now just a disclaimer. The next few slides contain intentionally intimidating data. Generally, in every fundraising session, you would see all of these things like that. So I'll promise you that I'll just go quickly over these 3-4 slides. All right, this is landscape study. I mean, frankly, I never understood the importance of this except from a cursory, there are 63% philanthropists, 70,000 crores, and so on and so forth. Trust me, or at least in my opinion, for a fundraiser, these are immaterial to the point where uh, are they able to, how do they communicate their idea to these different people? For example, philanthropists, how do you approach them? How do you approach corporations, CSR, foreign sources, so on and so forth like that? But this just segment for the purpose of our fundraising, I'm not going to look at the landscape. I would go with a healthy assumption that most of you folks who are into fundraising have some kind of an idea. And given the scope of our this time slot, I would want to focus on the much more critical aspects as to how do you go about doing fundraising. So these are some statistics that tell about how much is the fundraising that's been raised in the social sector, so on and so forth. Over the past couple of years, there's been remarkable, I don't want to say decline, but there's a decline there's the rate of funding that's been coming up from the foreign source has declined due to FCRA. Some of whom you here may have been affected by it also. And this is basically a random slide indicating funding disparity, private and government. My point is, please note that I'm in no way trying to undersell these slides, but I wouldn't want you folks to be intimidated by these things and all that, and focus on what your core requirement is as a fundraiser. Just to give, let's look at some now. Any good fundraiser would have to look at these 5 principles as as a kind of a benchmarking practice that they need to follow. It doesn't matter whether you're fundraising for a big organization or fundraising the local Teliwala Galli ka uncle. It doesn't matter. What matters is the principle on which you are founded on. So the first is that to be transparent uh, um, and when I talk about transparent in the sense, no, don't give them a different picture. Don't mislead them. And it's like the Ashwatthama syndrome. For those who may be familiar with Mahabharata, there is a certain incident where Yudhishthir doesn't uh, is causing the has resulted in the death of 1 second, has resulted into the death of Drona by giving a misleading nominal on Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama, the elephant, has died. So those. So the basic idea is that how do we become transparent in what we communicate? That's a fundamental principle. Second is that what's the intent of the donor needs to be understood, needs to be looked at. So the first is transparency. The second is what your fundraising basis is, that has to be aligned with the donor. Third, acknowledge, acknowledge, acknowledge. Whether you're getting a money, you need to acknowledge that person or that institution or that individual. Media say, but what we're talking about here is basically there has to be a financial acknowledgement that's done, a legal acknowledgement, and a social acknowledgement done. Social, so that more people can actually get to know the good work that they are doing in supporting. And let's look at the CSR partners and all that as at the end of the day, they are not people from some outer ecosystem or something. They also are part of our own ecosystem and having their own KRAs, KPI, key result areas, key performance indicators, and so on and so forth. So this acknowledgement goes a long way. Financial and legal acknowledgement means the ATG certifications, the audit reports, so on and so forth, kind of a thing. Then compensation of fundraisers. This is an interesting thing that's come around. By a fundraiser, लोग का compensation कैसे होना चाहिए? Should it be percentage basis of how much funds you bring in, or should be a salaried kind of a thing? Now, there have been ample evidence, and I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes one thing that I actually have faced. There have been people who have raised funds saying कि अगर मैं 1 लाख रुपया लूंगा तो उसका 10%. And what, so for example, if you raise, let's say 1 crore or something, you get 10 lakh rupees as, as a commission. Now, there have been ample evidences of this being actually misused. Now, just because it's being misused doesn't necessarily mean the idea is bad per se. It's just that there has to be a certain rigor in understanding how you're determining a compensation. Because what happens is sometimes when a fundraiser puts the commission as a priority, the all the above first 3 things that we saw, transparency, solicitation, donor intent, acknowledge, all those kind of things come into the backseater. So it's up to an organization, up to the fundraisers themselves to understand what's the commission or what's the compensation thing that they want to look at. The last thing, privacy protection. There has to be no conflict of interest. कहाँ से पैसा आपने डोनेट किया है, किसको डोनेट कर रहे हैं, किसके लिए डोनेट कर रहे हैं. There has to be an absolute regard for privacy. Now, there are a lot of other things that you can add to these, but these are typically some of the fundraising principles that are an absolute no-brainer for many of the fundraisers. Now, this is something that I just wanted to show it to you. I had got this WhatsApp. I'm assuming everyone is able to see this particular screen. I got a request one day saying that they would want to transfer 49 crores to my account, my organization's account, of which we would keep 14 crores. We would give back 20 crores to the state, to the organization, as a redonation, and as a read. And how do we put it in the redonation? In the budget, we need to put it as marketing expenses, media expenses, project council consultation expense, and so on and so forth, like that. As you can see this. So now the it's very easy for, okay, and let me tell you, I come from a decently financially stable background and all that, and I would like to think I'm a decently morally principled person, so I actually reported it and so on and so forth, so that it doesn't. But let's talk about an organization, an NGO that's really struggling or something like that. They would think, अरे यार मेरे को ठीक है यार 14 crore मिल रहा है where I can do some good and so on and so forth. But the what happens eventually is that this all part of a big Havana scam that's so prevalent in our sector that ultimately whatever happened to these NGOs and all that who have taken it, they have found themselves, on the wrong side of the law. And the once you give an entry to this, these kind of things, you can be rest assured that there is no escape mechanism for that organization. So if any of you ever come to anything, and I'm not talking of the scale of 49 crores or something like that, अगर 15 रुपए का भी extra ऐसा कुछ ये रहेगा, just be very careful of what you're getting involved into. So, I mean, this is one of the examples that I have faced in my life. I do hope that none of you have faced such a thing, or if you have faced, I congratulate you folks on being able to go past that. All right, now we come to the let's now look at when every fundraiser, whenever you join an organization, you either get some document that has been prepared by some people, who run that organization, or it's been, or you would be asked to prepare. Now, normally, log kya karte? They try to get everything and then try to summarize it. I, in my personal capacity, I would suggest that it's best to start from a summary, because see, the summary at the end of the day is like the preamble to our constitution. And if you look at our preamble, we the people of India, justice, social, economical, political, fraternity, dignity, all those kind of things, that gives this essence of the entire thing. So the idea of this executive summary is that it's best if a fundraiser themselves can actually write this, because it does two things. One, it ensures that the fundraiser is connected with the way a certain proposal is drafted, or the basic philosophical idea of what that organization requires. So basically here we are looking at some of the steps that would go into preparing the executive summary and what are the components of it. For example, you look at the organization details. Jada Ramayan Mahabharat likho mat, a brief idea what's the legal status and what are the current partnerships, and the core focus of your organization. The second part is critical. Please note, whenever you write an executive summary or something like that, make sure that this second point is given a focus. आप लोग को ये जो करना है, जो भी उखाड़ना है आपको, what's the rationale for it? What's the problem that you're addressing? What is the gap within it? Who is it being addressing for? Are you like, just एक एनजीओ चालू करने के लिए आप लोग कर रहे हैं कि भाई एक्चुअली जमीन में प्रॉब्लम है कि नहीं, the idea, and is there anything to back your rationale? A rationale means that why is it that I want to do that kind of a thing. The third thing is, you as an organization, you as an individual, and I'm talking fundraising from an individual point of view, what is your unique selling point? आपका differentiating factor क्या है? आप क्या market में लोग जो कर रहे हैं, and when I say market, I'm talking about the समाज सरकार बाजार kind of a prime way. Are you doing things that are being done by other people? Are you a redundant idea? Are you doing something different? Or even if you're not doing something different, what is it that you're doing as an additional component? What is your sustainability? What's your Do you always have to depend on funding from other people, or is there a way for you to be sustainable on your own? What are the testimonials that you're supporting to you? And finally, the most important point, SROI. Now, what's an SROI? For many people who may not be familiar with the term, ROI is rate of interest or rate of investment or return. There are a lot of things like that. But SROI here means social return on investment. Social return on investment. उदाहरण के लिए इट्स लाइक इन मुंबई में मौसी लोग जो भाई आते हैं घर पे देश से, इतना पैसे में इतना ही मिलेगा. So the idea is that for every 1 rupee that you are funding towards the organization or towards the vision or towards the program, how much in a monetary term would the benefit the funding organization or the beneficiary actually gain? So for every 1 rupee that you put in, what is the social return on that investment that the funder is getting? So if it's 1 rupee invested, but if it's 2 rupees as you are getting, for anyone who's interested in more of this concept, please drop in a message to the web admin or something. I'll make sure that you get your the a decent conceptual document on this SROI. It's a fantastic principle, and trust me, it impresses a lot of people, man. So for every 1 rupee, if an NGO is getting 3 rupees or 4 rupees kind of a benefit from that, absolutely, Fatima, I will make sure that you get that. The idea is that it adds it does two things, two fantastic things. One, it shows the organization who's funding you or the people or the donor that by आप लोगों ने आपका गणित किया है. गणित means mathematics. You folks have done your mathematics. You're not looking at it as just doing some intervention, but trying to see what is the metric that you're using, how are you getting the impact of it, so on and so forth, like that. Just a second. Yeah. So I wouldn't elaborate much on this, but it's a fantastic concept that you need to look at more carefully. Like, where's my yeah. The fourth thing, I mean, ठीक है. मैं हमारा organization, what is our organization? What's the rationale? What's my USP? Now the fourth thing, call to action, man. Kitna rokada, how much money do we need? It shouldn't be like, we need this for this much, but what is it that I need the money for? What's the timeline? There has to be a certain timeline, there has to be milestones that have been there. How do you plan to engage them? I mean, are there volunteering opportunities? One of the biggest mistakes that I have done, when I started my career and all that, I would just look at my funding partners, and I funded from JP Morgan, Nomura, Swiss Bank, Ratnakar Bank, Eicher Motors, so on and so forth. I would first look at them, bhai, in log ke paas itna paisa hai. इनके annual budget में it's showing that they have 3 crore rupees to give. How can I get that? However, once you expand your scope beyond that, you realize that, my God, money is the least thing that they can give. There are far more important things. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So I was with this NGO called as Yuva Parivartan in Mumbai. It's an NGO that's focused on skill development and livelihood. So we had an organization type with Bank of America and JP Morgan were one of the funders and so on and so forth. Now, Bank of America gave us X amount for doing the livelihood project, normal. But then we saw that we needed computers. So we pitched to them, and over and above the funding budget, we got 502 computers. And I know them, of course, 502 may say 5 computer kharab nikla, but 497 computers. I know that because I was the one who actually transported them from the Thane Cheknaka, the Thane border per se. My point. So that's one avenue. The second avenue is that with JP Morgan, who was funding us for some livelihood projects, we asked them, can you folks support our students in financial literacy? It's JP Morgan Bank, for God's sake. I mean, can they support us in financial literacy? The result, what happened is that soon we didn't have to go to JP Morgan to renew for the second year. Their employees who were जहाँ पे भी हमारे centers stay, they would stay there, they would go on a Saturday, engage and so on and so forth like that. I'll give another example of a, looking at engagement. This is a pharmaceutical company. I'm not going to give the name. It's a very famous pharmaceutical company. We pitched, now they have these, see, हम NGO के लोग हैं, ज़्यादा कुछ, we just know what's happening in the sector and all that, right? But what if we could get a marketing director from a pharmaceutical company or a programs director from a pharmaceutical company to come and work with us for 2 months or so and so forth. So we pitched this to a pharmaceutical company, and what they did is that organization, and it still continues tradition by the way till now, for 2 months pay it would send its program director for marketing and program director and the marketing director to our organization, Yuva Parivartan, the name of organization, where they would be paid their normal salary by the pharmaceutical company, but when they are here they will work like our employees. So, and that thing changed the entire landscape. So my idea is that as a fundraiser, you need to look at the person not just as a cash wallet, but as a entire consortium or a boutique of different things like that. So just make sure that in the executive summary this comes in. And finally, an impact achieved is basically what is the impact that you would achieve post this? What have you achieved so far? There's a concept called as benefits realization plan. For those who are familiar with program management, benefits realization plan का मतलब ये है, जो बेनिफिशियरी है या ये जो प्रोग्राम आप जो कर रहे हैं, ये बेनिफिट जो है ये प्रोग्राम का, when is it getting realized, how is it getting realized, that's a benefits realization plan. So having something like this gives us, or the funder, a confidence in giving it to you. So again, like the SROI, for those who would want to know about the benefit realization plan, just drop in a message or something like that, and I'll send it across. The same, and this third point, I just want to focus, third and fourth point, key metrics, ठीक है, metrics सबके पास है. Let's forget about whether they're good or bad, but metrics है सबके पास. लॉन्ग टर्म सिस्टमिक चेंज एनविसाज भाई, ये 1 करोड़ 10 लाख जो इन्वेस्ट किया, इससे सिस्टम में क्या चेंज हो रहा है? और इज इट जस्ट लाइक दैट अ सैंड कैसल बिल्ट ऑन द शोर लाइन वेयर अगला वेव आ गया और पूरा डूब गया, दैट काइंड ऑफ थिंग. इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर यू टू आर्टिकुलेट दिस. नाउ, in the assumption that you think this executive summary is, my god, 7-8 pages, not at all. My idea is that as a fundraiser, your objective is to get all of these things condensed in a couple of pages, not more than that. All right, just a second. Yeah. So this is the executive summary I have spoken about. Let's look at the next thing. ये अभी आपने एक summary बनाया fundraiser. In case you have, and I would request that for the people who have got the PowerPoint or the pitch deck or proposals from before they came in or something like that, please attempt at re-looking at your proposal, and that would really help a lot in some ways. ऑलराइट, आपने समरी लिखा, अभी इस पे एक्सपैंड कैसे करना है. दीज आर सम क्रिटिकल पॉइंट्स दैट यू कैन center around while expanding, and I'm going to show you a proposal that fits all of these well. The first is by current status quo क्या है, currently क्या लोचा हो रहा है, what is the thing that you're going to address and so on and so forth. You need to get that. Then what is the problem statement, identification and impact. I'm going to show you a problem tree in the next slide, but right now don't, and I'm also going to share this slide so that you can look at it later. What's the problem statement? It's identification and impact. What is the scope of work that you would be doing, your organization would be doing to achieve this particular vision? कैसे implement करेंगे? Now see, you as a fundraiser may not be perfect in knowing all the things and everything like that, but what is the plan to get the scope of work done? That's what you need to look at. You need to engage with different people to get in here. You need to, a fundraiser is a sutradhar, nothing less. एज अ फंड रेजर आपका सिर्फ जवाबदारी क्लाइंट के साथ नहीं है. And this is what I found the coolest bit of a fundraiser, and you ought to be proud of yourself. You are the person who has a connect with every person working in this organization, all the stakeholders, right from the program team to the monitoring team to the admin team to the financial team to the people management team to the communications team, to all of those people. You are the सूत्रधार for these things and all that. Client को कुछ अलग requirement चाहिए, उसका feasibility है कि नहीं, all of those things you actually look at. Then the project timelines, we are going to look at things called as Gantt chart and so on and so forth. Gantt में है, don't worry, I'll be showing a visualization of these things as we go on. Resource allocation, ठीक है, आपने timeline तो डाल दिया, but what are the resources to be allocated? Now, what is resources? Resources is not just money, resources also is people and so on and so forth. As a fundraiser, please note that it is not just the people management team or the CEO's objectives, or CEO's objective to get the right people. It's your also objective to get the right people to do this project. Why? So that when you go and pitch tomorrow to that external person, you have the full confidence that, my God, I mean, मेरा team है यार, कड़क लोग हैं, they'll be fulfilling this, so and so forth like that. Then we come to risk assessment, mitigation, and compliance. We will introduce you to a thing called as what is that thing called? It's called as a risk register. I mean, again, I'm telling you, you don't need to know all of these. No, you don't need to fill all of these things, but you need to, as a fundraiser, need to know. And as I complete the last point, let me come to why these are critical. Yeah. Scalability, replication aspect. Now let's look at all of these points together and what it means to be the fundraiser. When you go to a fund, you go for funding, लोग आपको पैसे क्यों देंगे? They would want to give you, they will give you money only when you're able to show that how you are able to use that money or their interest or their investment or their enrollment or their engagement. How are you able to use that to change the status quo from the current undesirable status quo to a much more desirable status quo? And what is this desirable status quo? That is the impact that your project wants, the vision that your organization wants. और इसमें क्या क्या सिस्टमिक शिफ्ट और कल्चरल शिफ्ट होता है, that is where all of these identification of the problem, all of these things you would have to look at. They would ask you what all models are you going to follow, scope of work, what is your plan, what कभी तक खत्म होगा, क्वार्टर रिपोर्ट कब देगा, प्रोजेक्ट टाइमलाइंस, कितना रोकड़ा किधर जाएगा, कौन कौन से लोग कहाँ पे काम. My apologies for the Hindi, for folks who may not be familiar. I sincerely, I'll just make sure that I, connect. Where all would you be able to put money and people and so on and so forth, even technology for that matter? I mean, would you be able to, have you prepared in your plan a certain adaptation of technology so that the so that the weight of responsibility or the burden on your people who run this project is reduced? What are the risks here? I mean, are there hot risk, cold risk? What are the mitigation that's there? Are you complying? ये जो आप लोग कर रहे हैं, क्या ये one trick? Is it a one pony wonder or a one trick wonder? Or is it also being able to replicate somewhere else? So all of these things you have to know this, as a fundraiser. It's difficult, but all right. So now what we're going to do is let's look at some of these things. Huh? Let's show real examples of how some organizations have done it, and I'm just going to showcase one, how they have put, what is the current summary. They have just stated it here. So, for example, I'm assuming everyone is able to see my screen. Why am I not? Okay, okay. So, see this. The so-called weaker sex in India, demographic disaster or a dividend. I mean, it's that kind of a thing. Now, the plight of 158 million women in India are this. Now notice how these people have done it. जो भी नेगेटिव है सब ये उल्टा, it's standing up down. 62 million do not enter school, 27, 21, 31 dropped out. Only 17 million women enter secondary level education. Now see, This can this be made better? Yes. But at the end of the day, this tells you what the problem is. Only 17 million women from 158 million women actually enter secondary level. We are not even talking about graduation or 11th, 12th or something like that. We're just talking about this. So the idea is that setting up this kind of a context gives you more latitude to come to the next part. Next part is where you do a problem tree. Now, here I've given an example of, see, this is from a different organization. This is, if you, now let's try to understand what this means. And this is come in a proposal, by the way. Sorry, not in proposal, in the, in the proposal, when the organizer responded to proposal. If you can see in the background, there is a dim shape of a tree. अरे दिख नहीं रहा है यार. ठीक है, दिख जाएगा शायद ऐसा. Uh, this is the problem. The NGO is addressing lack of sustainable opportunity, livelihood opportunities. Now, if you look at this, the things that are below this line, these are what are the causes? What is causing this lack of sustainable livelihood development? So this NGO has actually even stated that the most dominant causes are civil society participation, government, blah blah blah. Proximal causes are the causes that are surrounding ecosystem causes. And look at the last thing. We talk about what are the perspectives according to this NGO that is causing lack of sustainable livelihood opportunities. जनता का प्रॉब्लम तो उनका प्रॉब्लम है. This is probably said by some minister or MLA or something. Then this is sub prashashnik. My apologies for those who may not follow Hindi. It says कि everyone is basically a victim of my God, bureaucratic corruption. इतनी गरीबी थी कि जवार का गोबर भेजने. So these are perspectives that's adding to the problem. And now, so here in below, it's causes that's causing this. Here, above this is what are the effects of it? Whom is this sustainable livelihood affecting and how it's affecting? How is it affecting individual actors? Deprivation of basic need, distress migration हो रहा है, early marriage हो रहा है. How is it affecting communities and so on and so forth? Institutional society को कैसे affect हो रहा है? Now imagine if you are able to attend something like this for your organization, and trust me, as a fundraiser, you are supposed to take this, because when the donor asks you things, you'll be able to look at all of it. I'm going to send this sample thing so that you also can replicate it in a way that works for you folks. Now, all right. So पहले साइड में हमने क्या किया? हमने बोला भाई लोचा क्या है, व्हाट्स द इश्यू. यहाँ पे हमने बोला हाउ इज दिस इश्यू, what is causing this issue, and what effect does this issue have on the society that you put. Now the next thing, what are we going to do? So here we are saying that this NGO is saying, I'm going to focus on girl child education, skill-based livelihood, community learning center, and youth development program. ठीक है, okay, sounds all right, but इसमें कुछ है नहीं, लिखा नहीं इन्होंने. But what are they grounding all of these things on? They are, I mean, look at how they have done this. I mean, they focus something called as the ORAT model, where AURAT, attitudinal, universal. So what they're saying essentially is that all the 4 things, 5 things, 6 things that they are doing, that's going to have its basis on these things. So now imagine you are working on a PowerPoint or a proposal or something like that. The ability to visually communicate something is extremely relevant and critical for a fundraiser, in some ways. So just makes, so here we have actually talked about the ethos that we are going to practice in our operations. Now the next slide. Now this is something else, mind you. This is, see, notice how it's written in, I think it's Marathi, yeah. Our art kadam process. What this NGO has done is they are saying that, all right, you saw what the problem is, okay? You saw what causes it and what effect it's having, okay? You saw what is our logic. Now this is our 8-step process that we are going to do. Community market study, team building, blah, 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 all of these kind of things like that. So the idea is that are you able to communicate this in either a slide or in the proposal in any way that you can actually do? And as a fundraiser, this creates a lot of lot of impact. The last thing, please, my dear fellow fundraisers, this is called as a Gantt chart. It is basically gives a visual indication of the timeline of your project. Many of you are familiar with, but it might surprise you that not many people actually put it in their proposals or something like that. Which I don't know, I don't get why, but it's so critical. So I just summarize some of these things here. But if you notice the 7-point impact assessment, what we are saying here is that पहला महीना need assessment रहेगा, community mobilization will run parallelly. From the second month, these things are going on. Then the placement will happen, वगैरह वगैरह. But impact assessment happens from the day it starts. The say monitoring and evaluation, all that. Why? Because it actually helps, and a fundraiser is part of this, mind you. I mean, a fundraiser का role ये नहीं है सिर्फ proposal बनाओ, but also to understand what impact a certain program is having, what plus or minuses needs to happen, and so on and so forth. So, right. So these are basically some of the things that I just wanted to showcase around that a fundraiser needs to know about. The next thing, wait, I mean, what's the wait? Now the next thing that I just want to focus on is here again. Yeah. I'm sorry, there's something wrong with my slide. Is anyone able to see the risk register? If so, please do a thumbs down or thumbs up. Thumbs up at least. All right, cool. Thanks. So basically, now here is, to be honest, one of the most critical documents that should exist in your ecosystem. A risk register is a fundraiser's, I don't want to say best friend, but it's one of the silent friends that kind of helps them. Basically, क्या है कि, any intervention that you do, and now look at the coding that's done. I'm just going to give a see. There are if those interested in the sample, I'll send it across also. But just make sure that don't copy paste it. Just आप लोग आपके organization के अनुसार adapt करो इसको. So basically, in a risk register, it's where you maintain an ecosystem. Your program team, everyone in your organization maintains an ecosystem of what all issues may happen, and if they happen, how are they mitigated, who is responsible for it, and how has it been done, so to speak, like that. Reza. I'll share a template of this later and stuff. So here, let's look at this code, 1.1.1. Now, what this the first one can be. Now, see, an organization can run multiple projects, right? So it can be for one project, it will be 1.1. For the second project, it can be 2.1. Third project, 3.1, so to speak, like that. What kind of, when I share the template, you'll be able to get it. I don't want to dive too much into it, but just explain what's the purpose of this thing. It tells you whether a risk is strategic, operational, or tactical. Strategic का मतलब है कि is a certain risk that your program or your funding going to face? Is it going to affect the organization as a whole, or is it only going to affect some operation, or is it going to affect some of your internal mechanisms? Then what is the level that's going to affect? Is it a positive risk or a negative risk? Now, this is a cool concept. A positive risk is something that, if worked on, can become an opportunity, while a negative risk is भाई लोचा हो गया यार, ये कर नहीं सकते उसको. So just to give an example, this next one is, what's the project that this risk belongs to? Who owns it? Who's the project manager? Community engagement. So just let me give an example of a risk. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, right? Let's look at what the risk describes. The masses are used to OD. OD is open defecation. To make the community open defecation free, behavioral change program needs to be launched. तो यहाँ पे रिस्क हमने क्या आइडेंटिफाई किया है कि यार अगर हम स्वच्छ भारत या ओपन डेफिकेशन फ्री का कोई टॉयलेट चालू करें, will the people actually use it? So just to give an example, there was this particular village where मस्त टॉयलेट सब बनाया, लेकिन पब्लिक यूज नहीं कर रहे. And the social workers saw that the women of that community were still not using the toilets. They would go to the farm and so on, speak like that. And so first they thought, is it because of privacy or security reason? So they put nice lighting and all that, but still no faida. Later, one of the Anganwadi and the Asha workers actually went and asked them, ki bhai kya hai, kyun samasya hai? And apparently, what prevented the woman from going to the toilet was the fact that these 4 to 5 women, they are, they are housewives there and so on and so forth. When they go together to the farm, and that's the only time that they get where they can actually interact with other women in a fully secure environment. So they would rather go for a group shauchalaya, my God. Yeah, anyway, that kind of a thing, rather than come to this. Now, the idea of a risk, sometimes when you may not have accounted for this risk, but when you saw that something like this would happen in some other place, you put it in the risk register. So anyway, I don't want to delve into this. I'll share a template which will have instructions and things and examples and all that. You can actually look at that and deduce. But why is this important for you as a fundraiser? Imagine that tomorrow when you're going for funding or something, you already have an answer for any question. अरे ऐसा हुआ तो ऐसा नहीं हुआ तो, those kind of things. Plus, it will make you much more confident. Now, the last part I just wanted to focus on is the metrics. As a fundraiser, agreed, ये program team, data team का जवाबदारी, you can tell them to do it, but it's your role to say कि does this particular program talk about metrics in terms of time? कितना टाइम लग रहा है ये करने के लिए? क्या हर प्रोग्राम, हर component of this project, are they getting completed in the correct time? Are they extending? What's the cost, the quality, risk, stakeholder analysis, जो mapping बोलते हैं? How is this? How are you gauging the impact of this? What do we say? Yeah, the impact of this particular um, um, uh, uh, program on the different stakeholders, on the performance, innovation, so on and so forth. Again, I'll share the template for this thing. Now, before I go further, I'll do one thing. Yeah? I mean, these are some of the properties of the metrics. They have to be relevant. They have to be objective, measurable. लोग समझना चाहिए भाई आपका metrics क्या है. They have to be actionable. ये ख्याली पुलाव या सोचा ऐसा type नहीं. They have to be a timeliness. They have to always be applied, kind of thing like that. And they have to be contemporary. They shouldn't be like 10-15 saal purana or something. They should be relevant and focused. Anyway, all right. Before we go ahead, I think what I can do is I'll pause for a bit because I understand that we have gone at length. And what I can do is, if there are any questions, I can take them here. If the audio or something could be done, that would be cool. If not, we can you could post some questions and I can help out
Hi,
with that.
Sajit.
Yeah.
Sajit, thank you for a wonderful and informative presentation. And this Srinivasa Prasad, who had raised his hand to ask something from you. So if
Please.
he wants to ask, he can either put it on chat or
अरे जैसे भी यार, जैसे भी
yeah.
please यार.
So I think I'll unmute him. He can, directly talk to you.
Yeah. Yes, Srinivas ji, please.
Yeah. Hi, Sajit.
Yeah. Hello.
Am I audible?
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderfully. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful session and eye-opening for us, particularly people like who are working in ground and not so good at these project proposals and all this. But my question is, anyhow, you said you will share those things, right? The tools and resources. But my question is that yes, this seems very interesting and very. But when comes to prepare a project or something, we need some more deeper knowledge, like to maintain a risk register or to create a tree of our problem tree or something. Is there any such detailed resource or material where we can go through and get into it some more deeply?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to do at the end of this session, do we have time? I think we have substantial time. I'm actually going to share an AI with you folks that's been in-house developed. This AI would not only help you in designing proposals and stuff and all that, it will also give you an idea of what these different things are, risk register and so on and so forth like that. There'll be this AI would not go into the internet and search for answers and stuff. I'll give you an introduction of this, Srinivas. Either
Okay.
ways, if there are any questions or something, even after using this AI or something like that, I'll also introduce you to our digital library where you can actually, look at a lot of what do we say, resources on fundraising, on proposals, and so on and so forth. Okay.
That's great. That's really helpful. Very helpful. Thank you.
All right. I'll take maybe a question, but yeah.
Question is about one is SROI. I'm not sure about SROI, and you also tell about that benefit realization plan. So I just need much more into it.
I'll do one thing. So what we'll do is at 12:30 when the session, when this we are done, for those interested, for 5-10 minutes, you will go through a benefit realization plan in SROI. Okay. In a nutshell, what they mean is, a SROI, a social return on investment, is a certain tool that is used to indicate to anyone who's supporting our program as to the cost equivalent. So it is not that the funder will get 3 rupees for every 1 rupee. No, it's the social equivalent of that 3 rupees. That kind of a thing. There is a mechanism to calculate that. It's a universal mechanism. I'll share even the formulas and stuff and all that. So that's one part. The second is the benefits realization plan. At the end of the day, why are we doing this thing? We are doing this so as to achieve a certain vision. Now, what tells us that this vision is achieved? The vision only gets achieved when certain benefits to these different stakeholders. Benefits means we are talking about beneficiaries and stuff and all that, right? What benefit are the stakeholders getting from this? Mind you, Mr. Srinivas, or everyone here who's involved in that program is also a beneficiary. It's not just those people or whoever it is. Everyone who's involved in a particular program or in this is a beneficiary of it. So, how do you realize that particular aspect? That's a benefit realization plan. I'll show that after 12:30. Just so that folks who wouldn't want to get into that can have them, if that's fine. You can. If you have no other questions, I think I can continue. I think I can wait for around 20 seconds if there are no other questions, and if not, I'll go ahead. All right. Okay. Looks like so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to show you some aspects as to all right. Okay. All right. Assuming that you're able to see my screen, just give me a thumbs up if possible. Okay. Now, I skip over this thing, this slide basically. Now, it's easy to understand that a fundraiser, a monitoring and evaluation ke liye log rahega and all that. But let me tell you that when I was part of that organization as a fundraiser, I was only the one who was involved in all of these things, kind of a thing. Because you have to give reports, quarterly reports. You have to understand your baseline kiya uska, what's the relevancy of that baseline, what indicators were used, and so on and so forth. So this is basically just a thing as to how you're looking at the data. Are these checkpoints that you can actually look at? You can just go over the slide. I just wanted to bring these things. Now, an important thing, and this comes later, but I just want to focus on the budgets. Whenever you, as a fundraiser, bhai, don't directly tell them we need 5 crores or something. Of course, you can put that statement, but the idea is that there has to be a detailed breakdown of the budget. How you're going to use this particular money, how much of it goes to the admin, to certain marketing, to certain this experience, to the operations cost, and so on and so forth. That has to be there. The fourth, don't never put a lump sum budget like that. Okay, the more breakdown. See, at the end of the day, this money jo aapko mil raha hai na, ये फुकट का money नहीं है. Some people, I mean, okay, forget about they are getting more or less or something. People are putting some effort to put that money. So the least we can do for the money that we get is give it its due. So the idea is that the more you're able to articulate how that money is going to be used, the more conviction a funder would have. So the third point, provide narratives to the budget. I'll show an example of what that means in one of the templates, which I'm going to share. Then budget notes. Budget notes are आपका salary and wages, fringe benefits, travel, transportation. You need to account for these things in your budget. Don't just say program cost 5 lakhs. Within that program cost, what is it you have to like really dig deep and say? I'm going to show you an example of this, so don't worry. I just want to focus on a couple of things. One, detailed budget, yes. Every project activity should have an inline, line budget item. There has to be narratives provided. See, I'll tell you why. 1 year or 2 year or 6 months down the project, you need to make sure that the donor and you don't have different interpretations of what this means. So this is a tool for you to clarify your basis so that there is no misunderstanding. Now we come to the most important thing that has to be done in any proposal. Trust me, I would actually argue that a problem or a rationale से भी important है ये. That's the organization capacity statement. Basically, it's a statement or purposeful document that tells any funder that what's the sorry, what's the capacity of the organization to handle these projects technically यानी कि process का क्या capacity है इनका administratively. The fund, the NGOs asked for 3 crores, but then their previous year was just the highest project they managed was only 32 lakhs. Now it's not that they can't do it, but are you able to prove that जो पिछले साल 32 lakhs किया अभी 30 करोड़ या 3 करोड़ कर सकते हो? So critical for you to do this, because when you are able to put an and again, the organization capacity statement is not only for the funder, it's for your own team to know, because when you look at financially, does your organization have a capacity or not, you would make mechanisms to do that. And what matters is what was the size of the people that were part of that project, what were the complex issues that happened. Last year you just worked on a project for a Anganwadi school or something like that, and today you are talking about a psychological reconstitution and reformation of of school dropouts in tribal affected areas or something like that. Now, my point is what's the capacity of this organization has to be documented. आप लोग किस किस को हैंडल कर रहे हैं? पिछले साल तक you were only in that panchayat, but now you are handling with an FCRA, CSR and stuff, lot of things, man. So please look at this carefully. I'm going to give an example of what this means also, just so that you can look at how this works. All right, now and in my opinion, the most important part, आपने proposal बनाया, fundraising stuff भी बनाया, but this is the every proposal, every PowerPoint that you make, you have to look at it from these 4 components. What is the technical approach and feasibility of your entire program? What is the monitoring, evaluation, reporting, and sustainability attribute? Organizational capacity, jo main bola, key person. See, there are points for each of these things, and I'm going to show you how it's done. And cost reasonableness. Now let's look at one point each. The first point is technical approach and feasibility. भाई आपने इतना जो सोचा, I mean, is it even possible? Is there a clarity of thought कि भाई राम भरोसे, or it's like सपने में देखा and then in the morning you just said कि I want to do this kind of thing. Is there a clarity of your thought? Is there an understanding of it? It's not like changing the world with a magic wand. the thing that you're attempting to do and trying to engage people, is it feasible? Do you have an understanding of it at the end of it? Or are you so egocentric and so uh, I don't know what the other term is, that you think you know it all. I mean, are you engaging with people? Does the ground really have a need for it? Third, financially sound. Hi, financially sound does not. Please, many funders think that paisa agar main, if I quote for this much money, the money will give me mechanism to make it sustainable. No. So before you even quote a money or something, the project or the program that you're doing, does it make sense for it to be financially sound? Do I require that much amount? So just to give an example of this, in a livelihood center, and I'll give a fantastic example of this actually. Um, we hired, there were 4 livelihood centers somewhere in Thane district, in Thane and Kalyan. And we hired one psychology counselor for each house, each center. And we noticed that, my God, this and when we looked at it, we saw that the psychology counselor was only coming every 2 days, but only for 1.5 hours, and we were giving them a full salary and stuff and all that. Now, what we realized is that each of these 4 centers were at maximum 3 kilometers distance from each other. And could we reduce the number of counselors from 4 to 2, where 2 things happen? The counselors will be able to give more time with the students, and number 2, can also connect with different centers and so on and so forth like that. So the financial nature of that, the cost, all of that matter here. Knowledge about processes. Why do I have a knowledge about? Do I think I know the process, or do I actually freaking know the process? Technologically adaptable. यार कोविड ने तो पूरा स्टेटस को चेंज किया हमारा. The idea that whatever interventions you are doing, is it possible to integrate, if not everything, at least some aspects into can you integrate technology into this thing? I'm not saying 100%, but it's important that you look at your program and see where all you can put technology to drive up its performance. So I mean, this is more or less common sense in many ways, but my insistence is that look at your program from a technical approach and the feasibility of the design. Second part, मॉनिटरिंग इवैल्यूएशन रिपोर्टिंग एंड सस्टेनेबिलिटी. नंबर 1, यार आप लोगों ने जो MNE प्लान बनाया है, and this as a fundraiser you must explore. See, the MNE people, no offense, one of my best friends are there in that. They are sometimes, in their own ecosystem. Okay, ye monitor and all that. You as a fundraiser who has a connect with the donor, with the beneficiary. I'm not a fan of the word beneficiary, but the people, with the grassroots workers, this and all that. You would be in a better position to tell the MNE team, यार ये क्या फलाने का प्लान बना है, इसका कुछ relevance है ही नहीं. You need to look at it. Does it make sense? Second, is it like too complicated, or is it some horror script or some bad B-grade movie or something that passes on for your MNE plan or something? You as a fundraiser have a critical responsibility in dissociating this. Then partners or collaborators को कुछ monitor हो रहा है क्या? By monitoring does not mean you investigate them thoroughly or something. Wherever they are associated, are there checks and balances to this thing? For example, sometimes in a program, the vendor and all is not put in. अगर vendor time में, for example, Akshay Patra, which as you all know is an organization that has to run like clockwork, because they go for the midday meal scheme. There has to be a monitoration of the vendors. Food grade kya hai, time pe aa raha hai ki nahi, the cost, all of those things. Similarly for education, for healthcare, like that. The data that you're getting, is the data the right data? Does this make sense? So and so forth. Then fourth thing, does your data or your MNE plan allow you a scope of reflection and improvement. So critical in this case. And the finally, yeah, now, I mean, is it just sustainable only in name, or does your M&E plan or reporting, or actually speak sustainability? And what exactly sustainable people say? And nowadays, sustainable has become such a buzzword kind of a thing. But is there an ability of that particular project that you're doing to go without, even if there is a certain funder back out or something? That is what it says. Third part, like I said, organizational capacity, key personal. What previous experience you have, technical slash technological, financial, identity capacity. Joe, the people involved in this project who are, see, this is not to put them down or up. When you say that, let's say, for example, Sajit Nair is going to be the program manager in this particular thing. Does Sajit Nair have the capacity to do that? If capacity अगर नहीं है तो उसका capacity कैसे बढ़ा सकते हैं? There's a difference between capacity and capability, mind you. So can this particular sheet or this particular person who has the capacity to be a program manager but is not right now, what things can the organization do for him? Has the capability to do that? What more can be done for this particular person? Those kind of things you can actually do. Can you handle multiple concurrent projects, diverse stakeholders, structure, all of those things, something that you need to look at. Last point, again, see, the is it all, some ivory tower built somewhere? How realistic? Do you need to look at market rates? Are all your eggs in one basket? Which means from a funding point of view or something, are all your funders in the same sub aapka jo all projects running by one funder only, or so on and so forth? Justifiable budget. I'll tell you a very bad example that I had I'd come across in the budget notes now. So this NGO was doing, they were often celebrating a party and all that when they're every 3 months. Nothing wrong with that and all that. But how they had put this party in the budget was, they had put the budget in the party in the budget was a stakeholder engagement and appreciation activity. Okay. Now, it doesn't, okay, fair enough, one can do that. But then in that, they had put things like alcohol and stuff and all that and everything. Now, I don't know. This is a personal thing. I'm not going to this, but at the end of the day, forget about the donor knowing this or not knowing this. The cause and everything are getting deprived by these kind of things. So, as a fundraiser, you are the sutradhar of how supposed to be the moral fiber of this entire thing. So, my main basis, all of these four criteria are critically important. You need to look at all your PowerPoint presentations, your project proposals on these four things. And let me see if I can share that. All right, give me a thumbs up if you're able to see this Word document. Okay, cool, correct. So basically, see, this is how I have actually calculated this 40 points, 15 points. As you can see this, technical, monitoring, 15, 25, 20, blah, blah, blah. अभी technical में मैं क्या check करूंगा? I'll check कि, does it handle well, so and so forth. I'll give my this एक project. Is my theory of change connected? Theory of action connected, so to speak, like that. Second, I'll share this. Don't worry. I'm just giving you an idea of जो मैं आपको स्लाइड में दिखाया उसी स्लाइड में अच्छा नहीं उसका एक्चुअल टेम्पलेट भी है. Does this app, how will you monitor the process? Do you have plan to use the data for reflection on the programmatic weaknesses? All of these. See, and it doesn't matter if you're a fundraiser or not. I mean, trust me, yaar. I mean, frankly, every person should be a fundraiser. The idea here is that we all are working towards a betterment of a status quo. So the more you are looking at this thing, the much more better in some way. Finally, organizational capacity statement, previous work experience, financial grant, capacity, all of these I've actually put it so you folks can look at it. And then comes cost reasonableness. Um, I mean, how it is and stuff. I deleted something because there were, from an organization. But idea is you need to look at all of these costs, program costs, administrative subcontracts, all of that. Okay, so this is basically the proposal evaluation criteria that you need to look at.